Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Advice from a Call Center Geek, the contact center and call center podcast. We try to give you some actionable items to take back into your contact center, improve the overall quality, improve the agent experience, hopefully improve the customer experience as well. My name is Tom Laird. I'm the CEO here at Expedia Interaction Marketing. Expedia is a 600 to 700 seat BPO call center outsourcer located here in northwestern PA in the good old US of A. How's everybody doing? Excited to kind of be back. Just took a little vacay, I guess. I haven't done too much of that with my family. So we went to visit my sister, was in Dewey, Delaware, hanging out on the beach a little bit, did a little boating. So had a lot of fun, but kind of getting back into the groove here. I know some of you listening or will be listening is currently at CCW. I hope you guys are having a blast at Call Center Week. Know that's going on right now. So again, this is kind of the talk I would have loved to have given at a CCW, right? Where I think there can be a ton of value given here. There's not a lot of talk on these types of things because, again, nobody's getting any value out of it from a selling standpoint, and we're not trying to sell here. So I want to talk to you about some of the coaching methods that are out there for agents, right? I don't want to say the 5 main ones, but 5 ones that I have utilized, used, played around with, learned more about this year on some of them. But I think, this can add some value and at least get you to think of how do we structure our coaching a little bit better for our agents. So I want to give you, again, some of the models. I want to give you some examples, maybe a little bit of back and forth of how that would work with really role playing a kind of a coaching session. And again, this is an AMA. I'm live on TikTok. I am live here on LinkedIn as well. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you want to talk about anything that you have seen to help, coaching your contact center or call center agents, please let me know and throw a comment in. I'll try to get to as many as we can. And even as we're going, I'll stop. And if something's good, I'll make sure to bring it up. So again, shoot me any type of questions or comments that you have. All right, so let's talk about some of these, and I think there's 3 of them that I really like, and there's 2 of them that I think I don't like as much, but are still kind of popular in the contact center, call center, and just in the business coaching world, right? And the first one, was really talked about by my friends at Value Agent who came on the podcast earlier, and Chris talked about the GROW method, and there's GROW and there's goal, like kind of almost the same type of thing, but when we talk about GROW, it's, have the goal, have a reality, options, and then the W is will. And I like to say win. But, that kind of goes either way. So, we're going to give the kind of the goal. We're going to sit down with the agent. We're going to talk about the goal first. Like, hey, we need to be at your handle time needs to be under 6 minutes. We're at like 6:20 right now, but let's talk about how we can get this bad boy, under that 6-minute mark. Right. And kind of have that discussion so we understand kind of where we're going. So, right. So we have the kind of the goal in mind. And then again, we talk about the reality of what is happening. Right. So, the last 3 or 4 days, we've been kind of trending in the wrong direction. Right. So let's kind of look at some of these calls. Let's look at some of the longer calls. And kind of talk that through and understand kind of where we're coming from. Again, none of this should be negative, right? We're not yelling at anybody. This is coaching. This is kind of just talking, trying to, hey, how do we figure this stuff out? So, we give some options, and that's kind of the O, right? So, what are some things that we can do to kind of fix this? And what would help you too? Again, this isn't just the coach screaming in your face like you're an NFL player, right? This is kind of a back and forth of how do we get this, and I kind of like this method because of that, right? So maybe it's, hey, let's listen to some more calls. Hey, what do you think? Should we role play some of this stuff? Do you need some extra training so that you can have more call control so that you're not kind of fumbling and looking for things? What are some of the options that we can do to kind of help you get to where you need? And then there has to be a will, or like I said, like a win, right? And that will or win is basically the commitment, right, of the agent to say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to do that, right? Let's kind of do this. I agree that I need to work on that, and this is 2 or 3 things that I can do to kind of help with that. So I kind of like this model. Again, all of this stuff, all it is doing is keeping you on track, right? We all know that if you go in to talk to a contact center agent and you don't have a plan for how you're going to coach or how you're going to talk to them, they're really good and they're really smart, and they can take you down the rabbit hole in 3 seconds and switch you around and turn you around so it makes it look like it's your fault that this all happened, right? So I think that's really the importance of having a specific model, or having something that you talk to your agents with to make sure that you're staying on task and that you're showing that it's a team, right? It's not you just saying, hey, listen, you need to get your handle time under 6 minutes. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm gonna have to write you up. Like that stuff gets nowhere. And this is a framework to have a conversation to kind of help. So all right, I like that, the grow or the goal model, right? The next one that is the OSKAR model, right? And it's OSKAR, right? Which stands for outcome, scaling, know-how, affirm, and action. I got it. All right. So same kind of thing, right? We want to talk about the outcomes first, or the goal first, right? So, hey, we need you to have your first call resolution come up from 60% to 75%, right? We need to have your handle time from 8 minutes to 6 minutes. Talking about the goal, talking about the outcome, that's kind of a theme with a lot of this stuff, is to start with what we need to do or why we're talking first, right? The next thing is, which is a little bit different than the other one, is the agent will then kind of rate themselves, right? What is the skill level? And that's kind of they're scaling themselves. What is the skill level that they think they are on this, right? And that kind of gets you to tell how confident they are in really what they're doing. So you say, hey, listen, what is your current skill level, in kind of this, and have them kind of talk that through. And if they say, well, it's really a 5, right? You know that you probably need to help them do some other things too. And I think that it's kind of like analytics, right? When we're having conversations, and I did a kind of a video on this yesterday, not to get off topic, but when you talk about AI and you talk about a chatbot, everything is so transactional that you lose some of the kind of the color around why a customer is calling. And I think same thing with this. If we just stay on, we need to fix this problem, we kind of miss some of maybe the color of what's really going on with an agent, and what are maybe some other things that we're not seeing to be able to help them. And I think that's a good way of kind of having them kind of judge where they are. All right, then we're going to talk about some things that they're really good at, right? Some know-how, right? And have them talk about, hey, you know what, I'm really strong in this area, or I'm really strong in understanding the CRM, and I can get to data really, really fast, right? And then we're going to affirm and we're going to action. So we're like, hey, I agree, man. Like, you rock that thing with the CRM. Like, we are so close to this. Let's just kind of come up with some other plans to make sure that we can get our handle time down, because definitely, what you do in the CRM is awesome, right? And then the R is review, right? And we're going to kind of go back and review. So I like this method as well. I like anything, and I guess why I like the grow or the goal a little bit more is I don't want to BS an agent, right? I don't want to say anything fake to an agent. And I think sometimes, when they talk about like the sandwich method, say something nice and then kind of give your critique and then say something nice. I think an agent thinks that that's a little bit fake, like you're coming at me and you're not really being truthful. So I like ones that are a little bit more to the point, but I like how this can kind of get the agent to talk a little bit more, and really kind of maybe, I don't want to say get to the root of problem, but maybe some of the other issues that we're not even thinking about in how they're dealing with the contact center. Okay. Next one. And I'm not a huge fan of this one, but I know a lot of you guys are. It's called the coach model, which is connect, outcome, awareness, course, and highlight. COACH. Coach. Right. So this is where, I kind of like the beginning, I guess. We're going to kind of sit and I'm just going to try to get a connection with you. Right. So I'm going to say, hey, did you see the Steeler game last night? Or, hey, did you watch the Grammys? Or you're going to have kind of a conversation and a shared interest, right? Like your favorite sports team. You're going to do something to kind of gain a little bit of, I don't know, trust of why you're there, kind of set them at ease. Don't keep them on edge. Right. And then after you kind of talk about that, this is where it gets weird for me, right? Because maybe I'm not just good at that transition. Right. But after we connect, then we want to kind of talk about, what the outcome is. Again, we go back to that kind of goal, right? So you're moving right from, we just talked about the Steelers to All right, now let's move on and talk about your CSAT scores, right? Your CSAT scores are, in the mid 70s. We'd like to get them to the 90s, right? And talk about, again, that's the outcome. And then we want them to be aware, right? That's the awareness, and give them some self-reflection, right? Or some thinking about kind of, yeah, you know what? You're right. Um, and the coach can kind of guide them a little bit with this, but you're right. Maybe I'm a little bit too firm. I know that this is a customer service type program. So I need to be a little bit softer, with sometimes. I know I can get frustrated, really, really, really early, in calls. And if you're going to have an agent that's kind of talking that through, that's amazing, right? Because there's so many things that can come about this. And all agents are self-aware. They all know what's going on. They all know what they're doing poorly or they're doing well. But self-awareness is, they internalize it, and they don't like to really talk about it, which, I don't know, maybe that's the opposite of being self-aware. But they are self-aware, but sometimes it's very difficult for them to be able to articulate that because they get defensive. They think that you're coming at them, right? And again, I think that this model is, if you have somebody who is, very thinks that you're kind of always out to get them, they're very difficult to deal with. I think that this is a good model to utilize because it's not as black and white, right? There's a lot of gray here. You're talking early on. You can get them to kind of self-reflect on some of the things that they're talking about. And then again, we come up with the course, right? So we have the connect, the C, we have the outcome, or kind of the goal, the O, the awareness, where we're having them kind of self-reflect, right? And then we're coming up with a course of action, the C, which makes sense. Like, okay, what do you think what we should do? And again, it's a we. I think that's really important with this. A lot of this is if you can get this to we and not I or you, and we're talking about things in the plural, right? That we are working together. Again, remember, this is a coaching session. This isn't a HR write-up session, right? You're trying to all figure this stuff out, right? And then, the last is highlight. And I think we just give them kind of a little bit of a, what, hey, I really appreciate that. You're I'm really happy that you've kind of taken this really well. I think we're going to be really successful with this, right? You give them, like, you end on a high note. You end on something that is making them feel good as they walk out of this. Which, so again, if you have somebody that's a little bit more difficult to coach, to deal with, I think that the coach model is really good. I don't think it's the overall one that you use, but I think it's a specific one. If you have somebody that you need to get to talk a little bit more, you can't be the one that's really, I'm not saying leading, because you always want to be leading the conversation, but you want to get them to kind of be a part of this. I think that that's a pretty good model to utilize. The next one is the clear model. And I got to look this one. This is, because I always forget this. So this is contracting, listening, exploring, action, and review, right? So contracting, it's just the same thing, right? All of these kind of start with, let's talk about, what the problem is. Let's talk about what the goals are that we want to get out of this, right? And you have to be careful with this stuff. Like all of these, and I probably should have said this at the beginning. So the tone is the message. It's like that when we talk about our customer service calls. Tone is the message. So if your tone is negative, if you're going in there with weird or any type of body language that is not positive, the associate, the agent, is going to pick up on that really early. They're going to get negative really early. You want to make sure that, again, you're going in there with a good attitude, with the attitude to help, not direct. And have a lot of these things, because a lot of these start with the goal. Like, and we say goal, but basically we're telling them what they did wrong, right? And where we need to go. And I think that's the piece of this too, that is on the coach, that has a body language issue. If there's anything like that, you're going to get this bad boy off on the wrong note. But the first one is, we're going to talk about, Janie or Jimmy. We got to improve our upsell or our cross sell. Our sales skills just aren't there, right? So let's have a session. Let's talk about this and see how we can maybe, I can help you, and you can maybe give me some insights into what you think. But I want to hear from you, and because that's the next part. This is the clear model. So the next part is listening. So we're going to ask the agent, what are some of the ways that you're currently upselling? What are some of the ways that you're trying to deal with calls if you have a longer handle time, right? Again, we're getting them to talk to us, getting them to kind of fill out of what some of the things that they're dealing with. And then it's up to the coach, right? So to then look at, are what they are doing effective, or are they not effective? And anything that's effective, we want to say, hey, that's a great strategy. I need to utilize that with more of my agents. I'm glad you brought that up. That was really cool, right? But what you're doing there when you're trying to sell, when you just tell me that you don't believe in assuming the sale, right? You just want to keep asking questions. I think that's where we maybe have a little bit of an issue, because with this program, we want to just assume the sale and say, you know what, thank you very much. If I can just have your credit card, or whatever that sales aspect is, I think is that's something that we need to focus on to get a little bit better with. And you explore these things, and you're kind of going back and forth. And the last, or I guess the A is the action, right? So again, it's a lot of these are kind of the same just in a little bit different way, right? The agent's going to tell you what they're going to try to do, right? So this is the action that they're going to take. And then the R is we're going to review this, every 2 weeks or every week. So again, we are talking about the issue. We're listening to what the agent is doing. We're exploring if that is good or bad, coming up with some steps that we think as a team that we can both utilize. And then, we're going to review this after, every week or something like that. Or some type of time period that kind of works with your agent analysis, which I would say should be done at least every week. All right, I like this model. This is and I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. I always call it the STEPPPA, right? STEPPPA model. And this is subject, target, emotion, perception, plan, pace, and action. So there's a lot to this, but I kind of like it because it takes what some of these other methods that are for and kind of breaks them down into smaller segments, so that a coach can really control kind of what is happening. All right. So the S stands for subject. Again, why are we here? Let's talk about, the issue that we have at hand. All right. T is target, right? We're going to get, specific on the target. And this is more, where the, the clear and the coach, we're kind of talking a little bit more, where there's a little bit back and forth. This is where, we're kind of more, the coach is more dictating, right? This is more goal setting. This is more taking action. This is more kind of a directive from the coach. So if you have somebody who's maybe open to coaching and they kind of want to get in, get out, but they want to hear what you have to say, they want to get better, I think that this is a pretty good model. This is a model that I think you can use for most of your agents, where some of the other ones maybe just for specific types of agents or personalities. But again, so we're going to target, right? So we're going to talk about the goal to manage this issue, right? What we need to be. And then I like this, what we get away. So we go analytic, and then we get a little bit, I don't want to say emotional, but we say, hey, how do you feel about that? Like, what are some of the things that you have issues with that? And, maybe if it's, their handle time goes up during peak times, they feel overwhelmed, right? They feel overwhelmed that it's call after call after call. They don't feel like they have a long enough after call work, right? Again, we're talking about these, and I would, you have to validate these feelings, right? You can't just say, well, that's not true. That never happens. No, because you can't tell somebody how they feel, right? So again, we want to open up the door after we kind of, I don't say knocked a couple times, right? We told them why we're here. This is the target that we need to be at. Have them give a little bit of feedback on how they're feeling about that. All right. There's a perception. That's the P. So again, we need to just make sure that the reality that they're saying, even if we don't think it's true, that we're kind of believing, or at least validating what they are. We can give as a coach our opinion, or we may see it a little bit differently, but we're giving the perception of kind of both, to kind of come through to the next part, which is the plan, right? So, what is the plan that we can do to have better call control, to get our CSAT scores up, and talking that stuff through. The last piece is the action, right? Again, same thing. We come up with a plan, how we're going to review it. What is the actual plan that we have in action? So I think, again, the coaching models are relatively all the same. Some I think are a little bit more to the point. Some are a little bit more back and forth and are more about the communication and the talking. I think you have to look at what your personality is when you look at some of these models. And again, I'll have the models in the show notes of the podcast, and I'll kind of put some of those some of the things that I talked about there as well. Not only is it your personality, but I think it's the agent as well, and we forget that, right? So there's different models for different people. But I think that the back and forth of this keeps you on a structure so that you as the coach are still helping, getting them to where they want to be, getting them where you need them to be, but you're also controlling the conversation so that it can be productive. Nobody's going down a rabbit hole, because that can happen really, really, really fast. So again, you can Google these, you can look them up, but again, the ones that I just went over again are the grow or goal, depending on how you look at it, the OSKAR, OSKAR, the coach model, the clear model, and the STEPPA model, which I think are kind of really about the same, but I love the nuance of them to kind of see how they can be a little bit different with everybody. So I'll open this up again. That's kind of what I had for everybody. If you have any questions, I see there's a couple things on LinkedIn here. I appreciate that, guys. Some good shout outs. Any questions that you may have on really anything, anything contact center, call center wise, if you have anything coaching wise, I will say this too, is we have our supervisors actually do the coaching. So if our QA department gets something that needs to be coached, and again, I know a lot of people disagree with this, and that's fine. I see kind of both sides. We send it out to the floor, have the supervisor listen, they talk. If there's a disagreement at that time, I'd rather have the disagreement happen with the supervisor and the QA person than the actual agent, who can get real ticked off, and then maybe we have a little bit of an issue. But if the supervisor says, no, I hear you, I agree as well, the supervisor pulls, and then they will kind of use some of these tools and methods to kind of go over, what we're dealing with here. Right. And that's a specific issue that may come up, but the supervisor is also looking at overall handle time, right? Overall CSAT scores, overall sentiment scores. And those are also being coached, doesn't come from QA, it'll come right from the supervisor. But I like to have the person that's dealing and having that interaction with the agent all day long, all week long. They're all part of their team, to be the one to talk to them, because I think they know them best, than to have somebody from QA that maybe has only talked to them 3 or 4 times. I think that becomes a little bit more difficult, when you're trying to build rapport and trust with somebody that you don't really know. That's because nobody likes to a lot of times hear what we're doing wrong and how we can do things better. But I think with the coaching model, we can get them to a point where, where it's a we and not an I. I know I've said that a couple of times, but I think that's the main gist of this. So, all right, guys, I appreciate that. If there are no more questions, thank you guys for joining. I hope that is helpful. I hope that this podcast will get a lot of listens to, because I think there's some value in here to try to help. Again, forget about technology for a second. Forget about AI. Forget about self-service. Forget about chatbots, and let's get back to the agent a little bit. And how can we help them? How can we support them? And how can we make them better? And hopefully this podcast, this episode can do that a little bit. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.